wait for too long, and you are super excited for the second half of the event. So, without any delay, let's begin the second session with the much awaited panel discussion on solar market outlook utility projects. And to discuss this, we have in the esteemed panel Mr. Kareem Garbi, Founding Executive Director, EPDA. He is the moderator. Miss Angela Leon Melkonian, Senior Project Development Manager, SCATEC. Mr. Barwar Mohammed, Senior Sales Manager, Longi Green Energy Technology. And Mr. Baban Atta Ali, Longi Authorized Distributor Iraq, QS General Contracting Limited. I welcome all panelists on the screen. And before handing over the session to Kareem sir, I would like to request all again that, like the first session, any questions you would like to put up, please put up in the Q&A box. Our panelists will be taking those questions at the end of the session. Over to you, Kareem sir.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for the introduction. Good afternoon or good morning, everyone, depending on where you are. So what I will do is I will just introduce myself as a moderator quickly, and then I will just call the name of the speakers I see on my screen, just for you to introduce yourself shortly and briefly, and maybe also describe your activities and your companies. And then we will start from there, and I will ask you a few questions. And anyone who wants to interact during this, just feel free to interact, right? Okay, so I'm Karim Megabi. I'm the founder and executive director of EPDA. EPDA is a project origination platform. So it means that we source projects for selected investors, and we're mostly active in Asia, Southeast Asia, and Central Asia, a bit of Europe, and a bit of Africa. We're mostly focused on large-scale or industrial-scale solar and wind projects above 20 to 50 megawatts, and up to there's no limit. It's growing now every year. And last year we closed 200 plus megawatts in 5 different countries. And this year we'll try to do our best to improve this record. So now, just Angela. So if you can introduce yourself and tell us more about SCATEC and your activities also in Iraq.
SCATEC. Sure. Thank you, Karim. It was nice seeing you again, even though virtually. So my name is Angela Melkonian, and I'm a senior project development manager in SCATEC, and I'm the project director for the Iraq projects, the 525 megawatt that we were awarded beginning of last year. So for those who don't know SCATEC, SCATEC is a Norwegian independent power producer founded in 2007. Initially, it was called SCATEC Solar because we were only doing solar projects. But then in 2019, we acquired as well SN Power, who does hydropower projects. So we acquired them together with their hydro portfolio. So now we're doing, in addition to solar hydro power plants, plus we got mandate to develop wind power plants around the world. And in addition to this, we started this year to do green hydrogen projects as well. So up to date, we have almost 3.5 gigawatts of renewable energy developed around the world. And we have offices all around the globe. We focus on emerging markets. This is very important. That's why we're looking at Iraq. And we are vertically integrated. So we finance, we develop, we construct, we do the EPC as well, and we operate the projects during the lifetime of the PPAs of 25 years. This is a brief.
Super. No, thank you very much, Angela. So Baban and Barwa, so you are both on Longi. Should you introduce yourself together, or should I? Okay. How do you work together, by the way?
Yeah, different. First of all, thanks to you all for the this webinar online and this e-meetings with you all guys and for Huawei people. Actually, we are from
Bawa, I think one of you or Baban, there is a big yeah, okay, that's okay.
We as QS company are established from year of 2013 and we were doing general contracts. So after that we started in the solar business as a need in the Iraq market. we started to looking for more high-end quality products. By then, we decided to choose from the tier one solar PV products, and even for the inverters and the batteries also. So for the solar PVs, we decided to work with Longi, as we see like from them they were very pleased to work in the Iraq market and to work in to be the first exportation to Iraq, because by then actually we were the first importer for them, even in the tier one solar panels. Then we decided to look for other products, because in Iraq we have a shortcut, as in the first session they mentioned. We cannot use on-grid for the retailing market because we have an electric cut. So we need to do a storage also, an ESS storage for any uh, project we do, even residential or commercial, even in except the power plants. As Scatec, they already got the contract because they will do the connection with the utility. So, but for the other smaller projects, uh, we need to have a storage. We, as our QS company, we were looking for the high-ended qualified products to enter the Iraq. Me, myself, and the CEO of the QS General Contracting in Iraq, and we are pleased to complete this session with you. For any other questions, nice to meet you all.
Thanks, Baban. So it's your turn, Bawa.
Yeah, regarding Longi, hello, my name is Burwa Majid. I'm a senior sales manager for Iraq for Longi. Longi, we are one of the tier one companies. We have produced last year 65 gigawatts, and we have been working in the Iraqi market for more than 2 years now. Our distributor are located in the most of the main province in Iraq. We are providing high quality PV solar panels, grade A, to Iraqi market. We are giving them, uh, let's say, the highest models that available. There's no differentiation between the countries. And for this summer, for third quarter of this year, the new products will be launched in the Iraqi market with the efficiency of 22%, and will be available through our distributors in Iraq. One of them, and probably Mr. QC Company and Mr. Baba, is our main distributor in Iraq.
And Bao, you are based in Iraq also, huh?
Yes, I'm based in Iraq.
So basically, Longi, you have your sales representative with you, actually, with the senior guy, and then you are working with different distributors in different provinces, or you have one key distributor. How are you organized?
Actually, we have many distributors, not one key distributor. We are supplying the end users through distributor, and there was sometimes for a high demand project from 5 megawatt and more, where we can supply them directly from our side, and we are more interested and we are focused more on, as the Longi, as the main company, we are interested in the utility projects and project that consume more than 5 megawatts at least.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, so it's very helpful. So it's helping for the the different types of questions. So okay, let's start now with the discussion. So well, Iraq is basically a country with high radiation, lots of space. If you do solar, like in many countries today in the MENA region, you know that you're going to achieve a very low LCOE and displaced a lot of fossil fuel use for the power sector. That's absolutely obvious. At the same time, it's a very big oil country, and you have many oil players which are there to either develop CCGT or use directly the oil for something. But the same players also, they have signed MOUs with the government, and they are trying also at the same time to develop solar. So we are hearing all that from the outside, right? And in the news, we understand that something is going on, and there was also a tender which was well known, and Scatec won a very large capacity in this tender. So I'm aware personally of a bit what's going on in the negotiations, little bit, I would say. But I'm very happy to have you, Angela, here because you will tell us more. I don't know what you can say, but we would love to understand, tell us more about, what's going on a bit in this tender and, why you moved to Iraq and what are the challenges that you are currently facing.
Okay, yes, thank you, Karim, and thank you for this background. Actually, the shift is happening because all of these oil and gas players are seeing that the solar tariffs have dropped enormously, and solar is competing. The tariffs in solar are much lower than conventional power supply tariffs now. So the tariff we have, for example, in Iraq is almost half what is costing the ministry to generate conventional power. So it absolutely makes sense that they would need to do the shift if they were to work on their budget deficits, because as we know, Iraq, similarly to Lebanon, where I come from and where I am at the moment, the electricity sector is almost a third or causes the third of the government budget deficit. So it's a big sector that they need to work on and they need to remediate. And to add on this, more background, in the past summers, so since 2018, there have been enormous political unrest from the people, mainly due, so protests and demonstrations, mainly due to power outages. Why? Because currently they have an installed capacity of almost 15 gigawatt of power. And in the summer, the peak demand reaches 30,000, so almost double. So what we are trying now to close the gap with diesel generators that is extremely polluting, and it's also expensive. So you have the grid power, and then you have to add on it the diesel generators. They call this diesel generator mafia because they did the business eventually with this, the private diesel generator companies. So yeah, the political sector is very influenced by the electricity sector, hence putting a big importance on remediating the electricity in the country. So finally, in 2019, the Ministry of Electricity launched a request for proposal for solar projects. It was 7 different projects in 5 different provinces, totaling 755 megawatts in total. There were projects of 30, 50 megawatts, but also a project of 225 megawatts and a 300 megawatts. So we want these 2 big projects, the 200 plus the 300. So we have a total of 525 megawatts in 2 different provinces, and with very competitive tariffs. So this was won through competitive tariff. And then after this, you have also other big IPPs like Masdar and Total. So you have Abu Dhabi and also French government, Total, who showed interest as well in the Iraqi market, which means that Iraqi market has a big potential. It's a virgin market for solar. I think we have, and I think Longi speakers can also support this, that currently we have an installed PV capacity of only around 250 megawatts around the country, which is extremely small. So it is a virgin market, and hopefully it will develop and will do the shift away from fossil fuel towards cleaner energy supply with solar. And there is another layer to add on this as well. There is USA pressure on Iraq to limit its gas imports from Iran, because the country, even though it's an oil exporter, it is the 6th biggest oil exporter in the world, but still it has electricity problems inside its country because it prefers to, export that. So it imports natural gas from Iran, and there is US pressure to limit those imports from Iran. So, the government is more than incentivized to be self-sufficient.
Okay. Thank. Can you hear me, Angela? Yes. Okay. Um, okay. Thank you. Okay. Thank you. It's a very interesting background. We'll talk more about the different policies and PPA and so on after. Let's continue to have an overview of the market. So, Baban, tell us more about what you see in Iraq. Actually, Angela said that you have only 250 megawatt. I didn't even know that actually you have 250 megawatt. So tell us more about
Because,
where they are, what you see in terms of market.
yes, actually, as she mentioned, the market is virgin because it's like the solar energy in Iraq is in general it's a new idea for in all sectors, and there was not such a support for the private sectors to enter this initial cost. As I mentioned, we in Iraq for the off-grid projects we need to add the cost of the storage. So if in general we have a cost for on-grid, in Iraq we have another cost for the storage. So this initial cost is almost like 50% more than the normal cost in USA or in Europe. So in this year, by the beginning of this year, the CBI they already did these loans to the private sectors. So they give them monies through the banks, and all private sectors and other sectors they can enter even based on their project to ask the payment for the initial cost, because we had this barrier for our business in the private sector actually. And for the utilities, as she mentioned, Iraq Ministry of Electricity, they started from last year. They wanted to get the price for the PPA, and then they invited these companies like Skatek and Aqua and Master Power China. These companies they already gave their price, and I don't know if Skatek they already got the contract, or it's only MOU. But as I see, maybe they are more more in the first stage for to get in the projects. So for the utility, actually, it's goes. We don't have in Iraq. We don't have such a company to finance the project. Maybe we have companies to do the EPC, but not to do the EPCF to finance by its own. So in Iraq, the ministry also they don't want to give the money, the payments in front, or do it by EPC way. They want to get an SPV to do all the project utilities based on a PPA which they do the contract. So the utility projects goes back to international companies, not local companies. For two reasons. Once we don't have that ability actually for getting that. Another main reason is we can't finance by our own company financing for the project. Even until now, the CBI can't help for the local companies for the utility projects. So yes, the market in general is both new for the international companies to enter for the utility projects, and for us as our local companies based on our ability to do the private sector.
So you yourself, you're more focused on the individuals, or what do you mean by private sector? Is it factories, or is it businesses? Is it institutions, or is it like people? And you mentioned that they can be
All
financed.
sectors. When I say private sectors, it means beside when I say private sectors, except the utility projects, it is all private sectors. Even the residentials, a factory, and hotel and hospital, it's all private sectors. So we have a private sectors and government. The government only have these utility projects. They don't push any other ministry to do another project. Only Ministry of Electricity. They want to lower the cost. They want to lower the cost by these projects. So until now, I think it has been like a long-term negotiation on the PPA price. So these companies like Skatek, I think they can negotiate with the ministry and they can get the PPA done. And because as you mentioned, we have a good radiation for the solar, and we have a good mass area to implement these projects. So Iraq doesn't have any problem both in area and irradiation for compatibility with the projects. And of course, these companies, they have their own feasibility. The projects already can be gaining their profits, I think, about less than 8 years or 7 years, based on what PPA they will do the contract. So yes, when I mentioned the private sector is beside these utility projects, because the utility projects goes back to these companies.
Sure. Okay, thank you. So, Rad, tell us more also what you see in the market. I mean, what kind of projects do you see? Let's put aside, I would say, the utility for now, okay? Because we have Skatec, and probably they can also tell us more about, what they are currently experiencing with the government and so on. But, aside from the utility, or at least this specific tender, so what do you see in the market? What's happening actually here?
You mean like in the general market, like beside these utility
No,
projects?
I was actually asking to Brawa, but so just
Okay.
to Sage. But anyway, I'll come back to
Yeah,
you, Baban. Don't worry.
Okay.
yeah. Regarding the segments of the market, it's depend on the information that we got from our surveys. Actually, the most consuming sector is the residential part, and then you have the industrial and the architectural sector, and this is the division, and the more than 60% of the usage for electricity or consumption of the electricity is done by the residentials. And as Angelica mentioned, we have these private generators, as we call them, private generator gangs, not mafias. They are gangs, actually.
Yes.
They are selling in very high prices. They are only compensating the lack of national grid availability, or they are in any perspective they are stealing money from the people because they provide low quality electricity. Frequency is less than 50, the voltage is 180. It's devastating, actually. So the market, as mentioned by my both colleagues, it's a virgin market. We need more support regarding the regulations, regarding the tariff from the government. We need this kind of let's say administrative support from the government as a first hand. There's something, this is so basic. We need actual electronic meters for the household, for the sectors, even for the factories, to know how the people are consuming the power, because there are so many, how can I call it? There are some people, some factories, they don't even set a meter for their consumption because they have some power, so they are not paying for electricity at all.
60%, just to add on that, was 60% of power is not paid for in Iraq.
Exactly, I didn't want to mention it. Okay, so the idea is now we need more administrative support from the government. This is the first step, so it can regulate the market. This is one of the main problems. Second problem for this sector, as mentioned by Mr. Baban, I have really one question for Angela. This is why the project have not started yet, because it was being signed since 2019 or 2020. So we daily, as a longi, we get a request for quotation for PV power plants, as called locally, for 200 megawatt. In some areas, you have the project. So my questions remains, okay, I know Skatek, I know your good future, your capacities, your previous, your case studies, your successful case studies, but there are some local companies, they are applying for permits for such as an investment project, actually, private investment. So
And
what's
how much
your...
are their tariffs? And how much are their tariffs? Because if you will do DFI financing, like we will, so
Yes.
there's a broader discussion on this, and it's a complex and very important subject actually. And it's good to understand once and for all to understand why this type of projects take time to develop. As you know, it's a virgin market, and Iraq doesn't have project finance scheme at all in the entire country. What does this mean? development finance institutions have never financed projects inside Iraq for this type of projects. And what does this mean? It means we're setting the precedent. We are entering a new market and we're putting the new criteria to be followed to enable and to unlock such projects. Similarly to other new markets, Jordan, Egypt, KSA, even KSA, any new market, first entry project, you need to suffer a little bit until the next rounds become more easy. And that's why you see as well from round 1 projects until round 2, 3, 4, you see tariffs dropping. Usually the round 1 projects, the tariffs are the highest and then it drops. But why? What is the reason behind this? Because DFIs come for the first time into a country and they evaluate and they take higher risk as a first time comer. And then once they implement a first project, they see, okay, this project was feasible. The risk is less than what we thought. Okay, then we are able to finance around 2, 3, 4, etc. And they start giving more competitive tariffs for the next round. So it's de-risked. Once you see that there was a project done successfully, this gives them massive breathing. They see that it was done. Otherwise, it's all estimations and assumptions until now. So, so to comment further on this, why it didn't happen yet. So there are many contracts to be signed. It's not an MOU level. We signed an implementation contract, main project agreements of this project, same as the other companies. So we signed this implementation contract, but the next big phase is the PPC signature, the power purchase contract. And this has the main commercial and legal points and main bankability points. If Iraq has never done solar DFI finance before, we need to negotiate a very big document outlining big bankability points that Iraqi government has never seen before because they haven't done before. So we need to negotiate both commercial and bankable points. Because if you go to commercial banks, and that's why I ask you about the other projects, what is the tariff of the other projects? Because if you go to commercial banks, they will finance, they might finance, but they will not finance at competitive financing terms. They will give you higher interest, they will give you a shorter tenor period, and your tariff with these components alone will be higher. Yeah, if Iraq wants to unlock our very competitive tariff, which is extremely competitive compared to other round 1 tenders, we need DFI financing with long tenors and very competitive interest rates. And these DFIs have bigger requirements to de-risk the project than commercial banks. So the more risk you take, the higher your interest rate is. And the higher the interest rate of the banks are, the higher the tariff is. Us, the DFIs, want to de-risk the project as much as possible to be able to give us very competitive financing terms and for us to be able to give competitive tariffs. Otherwise, these tariffs are unachievable. And why is it taking time? Because we need to negotiate a bankable, fair risk matrix PPC with the government to be able to give them competitive tariffs. So it's a win-win.
Okay. That's
it's a very good explanation. Angela, this brings me back, when I was also negotiating with governments in other countries. We're always explaining this. This is clear, but when you were talking about other developers which are progressing, what are you seeing in the market? Are they really progressing in a sense that, like they are negotiating PPA with the government? Or are they just, securing site and see the grid connection and then, hoping to see either after SCATEC or maybe have bilateral negotiation with the government? Because the PPA, right, is the key. And then after you have the financing, at which stage they are, the other projects that you are seeing?
Look, Mr. Karim, the point is, look, Angela is talking from the perspective of outside of Iraq. She's very professional. She knows what she's doing. But from a local perspective, we have some how we call them powerful entities that can influence even the tariff and influence getting the permit and influence securing the land. You know, one of the problem is securing the land for the project. And something must be explained. Securing a land for such a project when there's the land measure or the land area is a big quantity, have some local community regulations, unwritten rules for them. So these companies can secure the land because they are powerful. They can get almost the same tariff as Skatek or maybe a little higher. And they got the permit. And as explained by Mr. Ali, they can complete this. We have something called Al-Kafala Siyadiya, or in English is the
sovereign warranty.
guarantee by the state guarantee.
Sorry,
They can
can you
get
repeat?
this
There was
step.
a breaking.
The sovereign
Guarantee
warranty.
from the state.
Guarantee from the state.
Yeah, for the payment received
Yes,
by
yes,
the
yes, yes. Yeah.
yeah. So they can get this because they are powerful entities, as I mentioned. But the problem is they don't have the enough financing and they don't have this connection with the international financing entities to get it.
It all
So they
bottles
got
down.
points.
But
Pardon me?
it all bottles down to being able to raise financing. Because in 2017, there was another solar tender that was launched before that never happened. And the tariff was even lower than what we are offering now. But it was unbankable and it never happened.
Yeah, that's yeah, the bottleneck is the financing. There are some international investors that are interested in the Iraqi market, but as explained by Angelica, because it's a new market and this has never been done before in Iraq, so that the tariff is not competitive with the common tariff now presented by Masdar and Skate. So we have these problems, and they are big projects. We are talking about 2 gigawatt projects and 1 gigawatt in another province and 0.5 gigawatt in some other areas. So because solar projects, solar power plants, as they mentioned, they are in the roadmap of investment, National Investment Board of Iraq. So it's open for investors, local investors, to reach these projects.
And when you say not competitive, what do you mean by that? Because I understand that
Higher
if
than
the
tariff.
yeah, yes, okay, I see. Because what the tariff from Skatek is competitive. That's because if the electricity is subsidized, you know, in a way, what is competitivity? The competitivity is just reducing the subsidy for the government, basically.
Completely, yeah. Exactly, because the off-taker or the client is the government. So we are alleviating the amount of subsidy they are paying. Instead of investing with that money on something else, you know, they're subsidizing the electricity heavily.
And what is the price of electricity today that you have?
You can go ahead, please.
No, go ahead.
Okay. The tariff for the Iraq is very low for the residential, starting from 10 Iraqi dinar up to 120 Iraqi dinar per kilowatt hour.
In dollar, what is it? Does it mean?
Okay, I have to do the rate.
Angela, you don't have your calculator in mind? No, immediately calculating dollar. No.
I have my estimation. So we know how much is costing the government now, because you need to take into account the fuel as well with it. So the entire cost of generation. So it costs around 11 cents per kilowatt hour at the moment, the government.
That's the cost, and the price is, you know, this is.
Barwa, you are on mute.
We are talking about the selling price, Mr. Karim, right?
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly after the question I asked. It. That's the cost. So
Yeah,
that's the argument you said to the government. But what is
yeah,
the
the
price?
selling price is 8 cents. This is the maximum for
Maximum.
the industrial, and for the residential, it's starting from half cent, let's say, but it's
Wow.
going
Okay.
gradually up because it's supported by the government, the
Yes,
selling
yes, yes.
price.
So that's where you're having a very hard time, Angela, right? To discuss about. But at the same time, this was a tender, so I guess the
No, we're
electricity.
not having a hard time on the tariff.
Ah,
The tariff
voilà.
is
Good.
closed.
Ah, but
We're
very
not
good.
having at all
That's
on
very good.
this. It's not.
Very good.
What we're having concerns now is bringing the PPC in bankable form, and that means, and we don't want to get into. It's not the purpose of this call, but such big bankability points like termination costs, compensations, liquidated damages. There is a lot of complex things
Arbitration.
about arbitration. I'm not going to get into them one
No,
by
it's fine
one, but
already.
it's
We're trying to get information.
Yeah,
No, but that's interesting, obviously.
you're not going to get into that
I want to get you
information,
on the
Karim.
PPA.
It's sensitive information, but this is standard from one contract to another.
Sure,
This
no,
is the
no,
same that
obviously.
was done in Iraq, Jordan, and even in KSA. You need to have bankable contracts. We're not reinventing the wheel. We just want to do what we did in other successful RE programs in Iraq, but putting it in the context of Iraq. What does this mean? Taking into consideration the country risk of Iraq, because Iraq does not have the same country risk as Jordan. And what does this mean? It means what lenders, the financiers, might accept for Jordan, they might not accept for Iraq. Maybe they need more security on Iraq because it has a different country risk. Why it has a different country risk? Because there was no DFI financing before. It has a long historical history of political unrest, of ISIS occupation, the continuous war. So, so it's not Jordan. Iraq is not Jordan. And it's important
but
to
the
put
tariff
a
is
fair risk
also
matrix.
the
The tariff.
your tariff reflects this risk too. It's a good tariff.
So if you take Jordan round one, because this is Iraq round one, Jordan
Yes.
round one tariff was 17 US cents per kilowatt hour, and we are way below that.
Yeah.
Egypt round one was 14 US cents per kilowatt hour. Iraq way below that. And
That's right.
why first round projects have higher tariffs? Because of the risk, because it has higher risks than the coming rounds, like I explained earlier. So you're getting the FIs to finance, and then to have a successful precedent to come and finance at more competitive tariffs in the tenders coming afterwards.
So,
Yeah, after round one.
so Baban, what's your game into all this? Because this is you have these large scale projects, but and obviously they are currently under negotiation with. Which is good for Iraq actually, because this round one, as Angela said, is with very professional and experienced company like Skatek. So obviously they know well how to handle such negotiations, and hopefully this will be solved very soon, which we hope for also for the country and for their energy sector, because it's really a good thing. And that you as a distributor and as a player in the market. So what's your strategy yourself?
Actually, we are very happy in general that like companies like Skatek or any other international companies, they want to enter and to do the utility projects. And our strategy and our way is we are in support with them, not in competing with them. So if they want like anything locally or they need anything from the provinces. We, as our company, we have the good connections with these government people, either from those 5 provinces or the other province also. So you can easily finish and secure their rights internally. So any companies, even like, okay, now Angela is with us because actually we have a good connection with Chinese companies and other companies also. So our role for these utility projects, we can like help them in internal process, like both in the land coordinations and security for the projects. You know, these projects not for 1 2 years, the minimum is 25 years feasibilities and remaining project for the government. And Iraq, okay, as we mentioned, there was ISIS and other situations, but now it's going to be better, and we will support them to go everything smoothly with them. Either in the, okay, the ministry can has the ability to do some part, or let's say the big part, but there's a small part, or like 20% goes back to the AP, goes back to the province power and the people power in Iraq. There is tribe and tribe people. Okay, they also want to enter these, what is like going to the province. They also want to have a part. Okay, we can talk with them if they got any problem. We hope they will not get anything. They will not get in trouble with them. But in some strategy like this, we also gave the green light to the people in the government from those we have the great transformation people. Every province have some power plants, HFO power plants or gas power plants. They will do the connection with these solar power plants. So we are pleased if they want anything. We, as our QS company, we are in general based on these 5 provinces or any other province for this round or next round. We can help them to go everything smoothly with them.
Oh, that's very interesting. So you're basically providing both actually development services for different companies
Yes.
and at the same time also distributing equipment, right? You do both
Yeah.
activities.
We do both, like supplying for the retailing market, and we do also the consultancy for the other international companies. As I said, now Chinese company for this round one tariffs, they wanted to get a higher PPA than what the ministry wanted. Until now, we
Oh,
are in negotiation with them. So we don't know, either we can get it or we can get Simscatic.
very interesting. And regarding do you feel also that the government, because my experience in other countries is that when there is a flagship project like what you have here with Scatec, usually the government wants to see the end of the negotiations of this flagship project, so that at least they do the exercise once, in particular regarding the PPA and the sovereign guarantees, so that they can attract financing. It's not always the case, huh? But that's my experience in some countries. Do you see that also happening? Like the government is really focused on trying to make a first nice achievement and have bankable documents, and then that it would be duplicated, or they are conducting separate negotiations?
So
Can I answer on
Yeah, please, Baron, yes.
because I want to give another thing, like to Angela, that you will not lose in these projects. I want to give this assurance. Uh, First of all, yes, I see the PPA is lower price, but actually now, okay, we have a temporary government, but in general, our Ministry of Finance, even the income of oil of Iraq also goes back to the Ministry of Finance. So once you have achieved the sovereign warranty from the Ministry of Finance, and you already have the PPA contract with the Ministry of Electricity, you be rest assured that your payment will be paid and you will not lose. So one point is only remain the coordinations areas that you will work in those provinces. I think they already gave you 2 provinces to work in now. There will be more 3 or 4 provinces for these next rounds. So yes, the government will support either this temporary government or the next government, they will support these projects uh, officially, and they will help these projects to be uh, a success. So the Ministry of Finance, they will do the payment on time, and the Ministry of Electricity, because even Iraq can like complete all the needs of the electricity. They have a high cost now because all our like Iraq has like a lack cost and the lack energy for the production. Like 30 megawatts, we only have around 1,000 megawatts from the hydropower. The rest is from oil and gas, and oil and gas they have a high cost. Like on government cost, it's about 10 cents and more. So these projects will be done even if we get the production capability for the lack of the energy in Iraq. They will do it because to make lower the cost. Because Iraq want to have a lower cost, also same other countries. So it will be a good opportunity, and government officially will support these projects.
We are hoping that, Karim, because we have a caretaking government now, and when this RFP was launched, you see different faces. So when the RFP was launched, there was a different Minister of Electricity. Now there is another. Then after the elections, it will be another. And this is a challenge in all jurisdictions where we have worked, where you have a changing government. You wait and see if the agenda will change or will not change. And it's a bet that we take because they allocate a certain budget on certain projects. And indeed, this was allocated for this flagship project, but anything can happen. But we're hoping that indeed they will follow through the original plan because they have a vision. It's called Iraq 2030 vision, just like KSA has the vision 2030. And what does this vision say? It says 33% of the Iraqi energy mix will come from renewable energy power. And
so
in
it's
2000,
energy mix or electricity mix? Electricity, right?
electricity mix.
Electricity, okay.
Electricity mix. And so this is 33%.
Wow.
And only last year, they also signed and ratified the Paris Agreement, which is great. It means, they are really taking the concrete steps towards the transition towards clean energy. So we're hoping that they will follow through their original plans.
Yes, 33%, even 500 megawatt will be.
So that would be 12,000 gigawatts by 2030. 12,000.
12,000 megawatts. So it means
Yes.
12 gigawatts, and you
Yeah.
would bring 500, and there are few MOUs with Total and Mazda. Indeed, I think it's one gigawatt, etc. There's also Power China, but Power China, it's an EPC MOU, right? So it's not really an IPP. So let's see what's going to happen. So we're still missing, I don't know, 8 gigawatt. Bawa, where is it? Where are they? These 8 megawatts? Where are they?
Yeah, it's a huge market. There's a huge demand of it, and luckily there are some other regulations. They are currently being, let's say, being prepared for the new government, asking the investment projects such as factories and residential compounds, and hopefully hospitals too. But in general, for investment projects, they must depend at least 20% for the consumption on the solar energy. So this will open even for, as mentioned by Mr. Baban, the private sector will participate in the, let's say, we hopefully call it solar revolution or more cleaner energy sources in our country. So with this regulation, you can imagine a residential compound consisting of 1,000 houses, each one at least use, let's say, 5 kilowatt hour. So you can imagine if it's use 25% of its consumption from solar energy, this will open a huge market and it will have a good impact even on the consumption from the national grid. So hopefully this regulation, if they are look, there are good regulations. They are being prepared. But the key point here is, are they going to be implemented or forced on the in reality or not? So we are hopefully the new government at the new government will be established and will be announced. Hopefully, this new regulation will take place in the real world.
And how is
Just
it
to
going? Oh, sorry.
Just to add on what Barwa said, and it's a question more because we are under utility scale policy and you're looking at also rooftop and private production. As of now, I think in 2017, there was a law policy allowing self-production and consumption, right? So you have CNI customers and consumers who are free to opt to do rooftop projects or ground mounted for their own self-consumption, right? Because in some jurisdictions, you don't even have this regulation.
Yeah, there's some, and actually from our part as Longi, now we have some focus on some cement factories. So we will, because according to the same law, uh, destinating, or let's say allocating a land for a solar project is prioritized on other investment projects. So maybe let's say we have five cement factories in a province that are close to each other due to the resources they are using. So we can create a power station for them as a utility project, especially for them. Like there's a concept we gave to one province, an investor in one of the province. So they have five cement factories, each one consuming 50 megawatt. So the total will be around 250 megawatt only for them. Now the government, according to law, is obliged to secure the land for this project. So I think in the private sector, there's going to be private utility projects, as it's called.
Okay, where the off-taker is a private customer, industrial or a
Yes,
commercial customer. Okay.
Yeah.
yes.
And
So
then
they'll take it
finance.
private,
And
and
then
because the tariff of the government is higher than your tariff, the government is selling to them the electricity. So they are free to buy directly from a private utility project.
and financing, how because I think Valence said that now you have banks that can provide good financing for that local,
Uh,
because this is local financing, right? So again with
yeah,
local financing. So do you have good loans, good terms for that? Do you know?
this has been look the financing part of this project. There's two approach we are using. One of them is to be honest, as a Longi, we are a company from China, so we have some Chinese investors who are interested in this idea
Yes,
because
yes.
you already have the buyer, the tariff is good, and there's no regulation from the government that is against you, so you can work directly. So there are some international investors, mostly from China. And the second part is these factories, because they are strategic national factories, because as you know, cement factories, they operate on a country scale. So there are some funding for them with a very low interest rate. The key part of this, which is left, is are they are they willing to take such loan for this project? We have to convince them, we have to show them more feasibility study. But there's a fund from the central bank for these factories, to be specific.
Angela, you have the list of this factory already? You're putting together the list?
Yeah, just calculate.
There is the whole team is there actually now. You have
Yeah,
Ramba can help.
Karim,
Marwa has the list. So,
yeah. The problem is we are sharing information and she's just standing there.
Yeah, she's
always-
just sharing. She doesn't give anything.
No, but
No, because we're not developing this. We're not doing this, we're doing this major utility scale project now, and hopefully it will come to fruition. We haven't really looked at the private sector yet.
yet you see the
So
yet.
it's interesting.
That's the yet. The key point is
Oh,
the
for
yet.
sure. Because first you need to do the market entry with, you need to prove it. Like in Jordan, for example, it started with utility scale, or in Egypt, you need to unlock the market first, and then you look for other opportunities.
No, but look, there is 12
There's some
gigawatt to do
information.
until 2030. So there's a big market.
There is a cake for everyone,
Yeah, for
Karim.
everyone.
No, Angelica, we are not competing with you. We are a solar PV panel provide manufacturer. So hopefully we'll get
To
a
work
channel to.
together. No, completely. I know Longi very well. It's a top
But
top five
there's,
manufacturer.
yeah, there's one addition I want to say. There's one point I want to shed light on it that mentioned by Mr. Baban. Is there's a characteristic of Iraq that differentiate Iraq's market in utility project from the other countries that mentioned by Angelica. In Iraq, there's you have to get the approval from the central government. All the paperwork should be right, and there's other part, the local part that you have to take care of. The tribes, the local powers. So personally, as my personal opinion as a sales manager of Longi, I don't have optimistic idea regarding project with governments. I depend more on the private sector because private sector they already have the power in their local province, in their local area. So there are some issues are already been solved, but the government from Baghdad is not that powerful to when it's come to the real life application or installation or execution.
Okay, thank you, Barwa, for sharing this information. Okay, noted.
Welcome.
Don't be so pessimistic, Mr. Bara. It will
It's
be.
very specific to the Iraqi market, and that's what we had perceived as well. That's what we had heard.
2 years of market studying, detailing, surveying. We got this information. In which sector is the easiest to penetrate, cost less, and safe as on the return of investment.
No, honestly, it's when I'm hearing all of you, it looks like really it's the beginning of a booming market, and but you need to be
Yeah.
patient. You need to be patient because the start is always it takes time. As Angela said, if you government changes, the different people are coming in the Ministry of Energy, etc. It takes more time, but hopefully after now you have a temporary government after things are getting into better shape, then hopefully you'll be able to move forward faster, and the potential is there for sure. And I think maybe I'm going to take to go to me also Iraq soon. Join you guys. Now, okay, so it's very interesting. Look, I guess it's 1 hour. No, Vaishali, it's we do. Should we answer some questions from the audience?
Yes, sir. We have a question. Only one question. I'll show on the stage. 1 second. This is for Angela, ma'am.
Thank you for this question. Very good question. Of course, we're looking at this. This is carbon credit certification, and definitely we're looking at this. And this is actually one of the points in the PPC as well, because the PPC needs to regulate as well this, because it's a commercial point as well, because you can monetize it, you can trade it. Yeah.
Okay, that's it. There is no more questions.
Okay,
So-
this was fast.
I hope it was
Yeah.
all clear. That's why there was no question.
Yeah. Thank you so much to all our esteemed panelists. Kareem sir, you were absolutely outstanding. Thanks so much for the terrific and very professional example you set as a moderator. It was a pleasure having you in such a well planned and high energy panel discussion. Thank you, everyone, for extending your time and support for the event. We promise you to come back with more exciting topics very soon. Thanks to the partner, Huawei Technologies, for extending their support to organize this event. The floor is now open for networking. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
Thank you,
you.
Barwa,
And
Baban, and
thank you for
Karim.
the organization, Solar Quarter, and Vaishali. Thank you very much.